DraftKings and FanDuel, this time for the Sunday 3-game wild card weekend DFS slate. Welcome, I'm Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy, and I'm joined by Jack, architect of our lineup builder, Short Slate Crusher. Jack, back-to-back live streams. It's always good. What's up, man? How you feeling?
Hey, good. Now we're well practiced at the live stream here. So let's get rolling. We got one extra game to cover today.
Exactly. So we're going to cover the 3 games today. Reminder that tomorrow I will post a showdown video for the Monday night Rams and Vikings matchup. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel to get notified when that drops. And this is a live Q&A. So you guys will drive the show. We'll go through our typical team by team injury usage notes at the beginning, one underperforming wide receiver to discuss, our general strategies for 3-game slates, and then some showdown notes at the end. But your questions will drive it. So as you ask questions in the chat, we will answer them throughout the show. Jack, you were just telling me right before we started, this is a much easier slate than yesterday. And honestly, maybe one of the easier, quote unquote, easier slates to build for all year.
Yeah, and then you shot back and said it took you like almost no time to build lineups. So for those that are, trying to get it more into the short slates, like this is a really good one to just try to turn the crank, right? Like just like do the normal things that we talk about on these kind of slates.
In your opinion, and just for the people out there who might be like, all right, it's easy for you to say, what makes this slate so easy for our viewers to build?
Yeah, I think one, like all the offenses are decent. Like there's not like horrible quarterbacks where we're just like, oh, like do we have to play this guy, right? We can play all these guys. And then the pricing, right? Like there are just a lot of elite players that are priced fairly, and like it's not easy for the field to just jam in like all the top plays. So you see a lot of ownerships. Like I was clicking through. I don't know. You felt like this. I clicked through the ownership. I was like, a lot of these guys are just like in the 20s, 30s, like even the elite players, and it's just because the pricing is very fair.
Yeah, we get the extra game that adds as well. Where you compare that to yesterday, where Lad McConkey was like 80%, Nico was 80% optimal, Henry was optimal, Mixon was optimal, and the Tommy DeVito rule we discussed yesterday, Russell Wilson ended up being optimal as a result.
Yeah, and I think probably a much lower chance of that kind of thing happening today, just because there's so many more of those guys. There are no 80% owned players today at all.
Which we love to see. So we got
Yes.
Russell in the chat, Chad in the chat. What's up, guys? Appreciate you joining. And if you have questions, throw them in the chat. We will answer them live here. Jack, let's start game by game. And again, just a quick scheduling reminder: we have the game at 1 with Denver and Buffalo, game at 4:30 with Green Bay and Philly, and the game at 8 with Washington and Tampa Bay. Let's start with Denver and Buffalo, and this will be very brief, Jack, because neither team has any new injuries. The only player of note is Amari Cooper returning for Buffalo. So we can play this game pretty straight up.
Yeah, and I think I guess let's go straight to like stacking Buffalo then. So Cooper, I mean, certainly fine. I think the model, I don't know if it likes Knox much, but I mean, it's kind of the 3 receivers, Kincaid, and then maybe Knox like for large field. That's kind of what you, and then obviously James Cook.
Yeah, I think, and again, Buffalo is the biggest favorite on the card, and so we're more likely to overstack them than some of these other teams on the slate. But yeah, I think Josh Allen, you compare him with, whether it's Shakir, who will be one of the most popular receivers on the slate, he's underpriced as Buffalo's wide receiver one. Amari Cooper, who hasn't been playing really full-time snaps at all since he came over to Buffalo, but he is healthy and he'll play here. And then Keon Coleman, who is our underperformer wide receiver. So we could just preview that now, Jack. I will just give one word of caution with Keon Coleman. He rates well in our model, but a lot of his underperforming came in week 18 when Buffalo was resting guys. So I'm not really sure we can extrapolate that and say he's a true underperforming wide receiver when everyone is healthy and playing.
Yeah, that's fair. So not someone to necessarily go 100% on. I mean, Cooper immediately sticks out as just like a low-owned guy that, you say he's not getting all the snaps, but Shakir's a slot guy. They don't really have any other outside receivers besides Coleman and Cooper, so probably some good opportunity there.
I think so too. So, what about the flip side, Denver? Are you stacking them in small? I'll talk about small field, but are you stacking Bo Nix and company in large field as 9, 10 point underdogs?
I think so, just because of the pricing. And if they get garbage time points, I think having Sutton as like the alpha like helps a lot, right? Like who to stack him with generally, especially for small field, right? If you're gonna use him, you just play Sutton. I don't know, maybe one other guy. I'm guessing this is Brian. This is the team you probably don't have to force like 4-man stacks though.
Yeah, I would think not because a tight end's really not useful here. Three-man running back committee, I would say maybe even two, but probably three is the sweet spot for stacking Denver. And then Marvin Mims, who exclusively crushes on short slates and showdowns. He is, despite not running all the routes, he's getting a ton of opportunity, and he's 5,100 on DraftKings. He's incredibly $7,000 on Showdown, so I'm curious to see how he beats me in Showdown today. But Mims getting deep balls and design touches is another guy that you have to consider if you're stacking Bo Nix.
Yeah, and again, the reason another reason for folks why we're saying you don't have to four-man stack. Four-man stacking is not necessarily always optimal, but it's a good like uniqueness play, right? So Bo Nix is going to be low owned. Like you don't have to do crazy things like four-man stack Denver to get a unique lineup with him.
Exactly, exactly. And I see Sam in the chat says our volume's a little bit low. I think that's on my end. As long as our volumes are equal, you might just have to turn the volume up on your side, guys. So sorry about that. We'll try to get that fixed here for the next stream. Who else is in the chat here? We got Smoothie, who just answered his question. Adam, what's up, Adam? Eagles, longtime viewer. JPT, what's up, man? Appreciate you joining. All right, guys. Again, if you have questions, throw them in the chat. We will answer them.
Shout out to DJ killing lineups. I think we did say we love playing guys that run wind sprints, and unfortunately, that is what happened.
That is exactly what happened yesterday. But honestly, I won, and I didn't pull this up, but I won a microfield GPP for 5K yesterday in that Chargers game, and Deontay Johnson only scored 2 points. But I think, Jack, a lot of people will overlook that, but that's the beauty of smaller contests. You don't have to be perfect.
Yep, you got it.
So anything else in this Buffalo game before we move on to Green Bay and Philly?
Nope, I think pretty straightforward. Yeah.
Final question here about this game is from Randy Scores, longtime subscriber and viewer, making his court-mandated monthly appearance and asking a question. It says, is Mac Hollins in play with Buffalo stacks for large field? He does run routes, Jack. It's like him and Amari are splitting reps, but very few and far between his targets. But he does have a game here or there where he can score 10 plus points, especially if he catches a touchdown. Did you use him in your player pool?
I did not. I'm just going back to look. So when Cooper plays half, they do kind of rotate. Yeah, all right. Maybe I'll go back and click that in for like 3 to 5% or something. Yeah, I think it's fine for like 150 lineups for sure.
So you can cut Randy Scores a commission check if you hit big
Yeah,
with Mac
Randy,
Hollins.
I owe you a commission check if I win with Matt Collins. I will screenshot and tag you.
Michael says, "Hey guys, how about the backup running backs today, especially Denver? Let's talk about that since we're on this game. Jaleel McLaughlin has taken over basically as the starter here, but they're mixing in these guys so much, and it's kind of hard to take away anything from last week with the blowout game against Kansas City resting their starters." To me, it's McLaughlin is the guy that you want here, especially him leading the way. Javante's mixing in. Estime is a clear third option that I probably wouldn't play today in really any contest because he's a little bit overpriced in Showdown as well. Jack, did you play any Javante Williams? I know you probably played Jaleel because he's going to be like 15 to 20% owned, but any Javante?
I did not. I think you called it was like last week or 2 weeks ago when you were like McLaughlin's the starter. They're probably going to give him the reps, and no one's playing him like that. It still kind of feels like that because like we haven't projected at least FanDuel is like under 20%. Like if he was the clear starter at that price with the most other running backs really expensive, I feel like he would be higher owned, even though he's an underdog. Just like as a points per dollar play. So yeah, I think I only went there just because I think the ownership's like pretty reasonable.
Yeah, I think so too. Okay, I like that as well. Let's see here. Let's see. Denver. Yeah, Jaleel 5,500 on FanDuel. Javante 5,300. All right, we got another question here about Bills running backs, and I guess we should probably discuss that as well. And I saw this in Showdown at least, Jack, for the Buffalo game. I know it's a smaller Showdown slate in terms of pricing, but Ty Johnson and Ray Davis were getting a decent chunk of ownership despite being relatively elevated in pricing. Let me see if I can find it here for you guys. So, yeah, Ray Davis 4K, Ty Johnson 3,600. To me, Jack, this seems like now that they're in the playoffs, and we see this pretty often, right? Teams that kind of rotate running backs or give them breathers throughout the season, they give them huge workloads in the playoffs. I would be shocked if James Cooks doesn't get like 80% of the touches today for Buffalo.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we have plenty of other like cheaper, lower owned guys to go to than these kind of gross backup. I just think most of these guys are probably we haven't get to yet, but like Eckler's probably the one backup running back we'll get to that's actually a reasonable play. So these other guys in this game, yeah, I probably wouldn't prioritize.
Cool, sounds good. All right, let's move on here and let's talk about this next game: Green Bay and Philly. Should be an interesting game. And Christian Watson, unfortunately, is out towards ACL in Week 18. That super sucks for him. So we'll have the three receivers of Romeo Dobbs, Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks. Bo Melton and Malik Heath will also rotate in. If we look at Week 17, when we had this exact same setup for Green Bay, Dobbs led with 54 routes, by the way, tons of volume in that game. Wicks, 46 routes. Jaden Reed, 45. Melton and Heath about 15 snaps each. So Green Bay, despite who's in or out, they still rotate some of those back end guys from time to time. Uh, Green Bay on defense may return Quay Walker, which would be a nice little upgrade to their defensive unit. And then the biggest question that people have had recently is Philadelphia's stars and their injuries. But Jalen Hurts, Devonta Smith, AJ Brown, all fully healthy, all off the injury report, all good to go. Junior in the chat says, "Do you guys think Hurts will have any limitations today?" No, it's concussion. Clear the concussion protocol. He's good to go, so expect him to play as normal. It's not like it was a soft tissue injury at all. But Jack, you're a Packers fan. Feelings about their chances in this game, and then two, the wide receiver rotation and how we should be playing it.
Yeah, and I think, one thing we've all learned the hard way here is like you shouldn't try to guess like game outcomes, right? When you build lineups, you try to say like, okay, if an outcome is this way, how can I build a lineup to win? So yeah, as a Packer fan, do I want them to win? Sure, but you can just think about like if Jalen Hurts fails, what do those lineups look like? If he succeeds, what do those lineups look like? I mean, he's gonna be sub 20% owned on a 3-game slate, right? Just because of the pricing of the position players, and we have two other elite rushing quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So even if there is some risk of him being limited, just the ownership discount on a guy that can easily win the slate with, two rushing touchdowns is worth trying. And yeah, I mean, who knows, man? Who knows, right? Yes, it could be a defensive game, could be a shootout. Honestly, do you have any lean? I don't know where this game goes, honestly.
I'm not sure either, but I will say the one thing we like about this game, or in fact, all of these games, is unlike yesterday's divisional rematch for the second time, all these teams are.
Yeah, it's certainly more like variance in the outcomes. Yeah, I think this game again kind of profiles as like you can stack either side. I guess I'll throw it back to you, but I think you can 4-man stack Green Bay just because like a little bit higher points floor and just the pricing is really cheap and with the Philly expensive bringbacks.
That's what I was thinking too, because no one's really stacking Green Bay, yet we can get them at low ownership, and it does allow you to probably fit in one extra stud if you're stacking the cheaper receivers and Tucker Craft at tight end. So I do like that. And I mean, you look at the ownership, Jordan Love 5%. If you're playing a bunch of lineups, it doesn't take much to get over the field on that.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this. I don't know if it was last week. One of the teams was kind of like you can 4-man stack them and just like play a stud at almost every other position. This seems like a good candidate to do that. Like you could literally probably click in like Barkley, Mike Evans, like guys like that, right? And that would be your unique thing is that you just have like one more stud in your lineup than the other people in small field if you went this way.
Yeah, and it seems like that is. It seems like that would be a popular approach, but again, Jordan Love like 5-6% projected ownership on both sites, so it's pretty crazy to think about that. So yeah, I really like that approach as well. Philly stacks, are we 4-man stacking, or with Hurts rushing, are we just 3-man stacking?
No, I actually did not see. I did not even get any 4-man stacks. Yeah, this tough, man. I don't know. Pricing is such that I just let's say like I don't think Barkley, Smith, and Brown and Hurts is like gonna get there.
Right.
Can two of those guys get there with Ertz? Yeah, not Ertz. Goddard. Yeah, sure, probably right. So I wouldn't like block it, but I guess for you like small field, are you gonna 4-man stack Philly or maybe just three?
Maybe probably just three. Although I did get a ton of Goddard today, so interesting price point. And tight ends aren't that strong in general on this slate. We look at the tight ends. I mean, Ertz is the most expensive guy on DraftKings at 4,300. We have Ertz, Otten, Kincaid, Goddard, Kraft, and then Denver's terrible group of tight ends, which
Yeah,
is pretty unlike we had yesterday, even though yesterday was only 2 games.
yeah, and I think like we know from the main slates, right? When in doubt, stack the tight end.
Yep.
So it seems like not a bad slate to do that, and maybe why you got a decent amount of Goddard with Hurts.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right, guys. Any other questions about that game? Let us know in the chat. Let's see here. Questions. Let's just catch up where we are right now. I think we're mostly caught up, but multiple questions about mega stacking, overstacking. So, Jack, on a slate like this, we've kind of hit this with each game as we've been talking, but we're not necessarily as interested in like 4x2, 4x3, and we can, right? Especially in maybe the late game where we expect to be high scoring and competitive. But it's not something we have to force on these slates, right? With 3 games.
Yeah, no, three gamer you can play a little more like a main slate, but you don't want to disallow it because again we see four-man stacking win on like 12 game slates,
True.
so definitely can still work. You just don't, unlike a two gamer, you don't like have to do it. I think is kind of the difference
Yeah,
to get unique at least.
I agree. Sean in the chat says Wix has a 38% target share versus man coverage. Yeah, we don't necessarily look at man versus zone because teams switch that up all the time, but Wix will be popular, so it's not like that stat alone is something under the radar that we can use to play Dontavian Wicks. We have a dilemma here, Jack, though, because Jaden Reed never performs well at low ownership. Wicks never performs well at high ownership. So I think Chris and I were talking this morning that just by default, that flow chart means we have to play Romeo Dobbs.
Oh man, that's gonna be 3 hour or whatever that game starts. 4 hours from now, we'll be messaging you about that when Dobbs catches the touchdown. But I mean, the other one too, like Kraft, just by the virtue of Watson being out, I guess Kraft is super chalky just because of the price probably. But I mean, yeah, who knows, man? That's an interesting take. I never heard that.
Yeah, so we'll see if that works or not, or not for today. All right, let's move on to what should be the most competitive and high-scoring game of the slate. That doesn't always work out, but we'll see if it does tonight. Washington and Tampa Bay. Jamison Crowder at receiver for Washington is technically questionable. Did not get into full practice, and if you guys have been watching my videos all year, you know that if a receiver or any positional player doesn't get into full practice with a hamstring, generally that means they will not play. And just in time, they called up a receiver from the practice squad, so we can probably expect Jameson Crowder not to play. So that means we have obviously Terry McLaurin. We have Alameda Zacchaeus as the wide receiver 2 on a playoff team, which is crazy to say out loud. But then that means De'Ami Brown and Luke McCaffrey will rotate as the wide receiver 3 and wide receiver 4. De'Ami Brown has been playing way more snaps than Luke McCaffrey in the past couple of weeks. It seems like they don't trust Luke McCaffrey enough on offense. At least that's from my untrained eye. Tampa Bay is getting extremely healthy here, Jack. They're returning Cade Otton, but also 2 guys in the defensive secondary in Antoine Winfield and Jamel Dean, who were starters to start the year but have missed a lot of time. So Tampa Bay, in theory, should be healthier on defense.
Yeah, this one again, like you said, this game could go a lot of ways. Obviously, huge point total. But it's like Daniel's first playoff game. I guess where I'd love to start in this game is Irving. Just that is like the one guy. I don't know where DraftKings came out, but he's the one guy that it's like super chalk. I mean, by like metrics, he's quite good. I mean, Washington is a run funnel. I just always, when you see a 60% owned guy that's not like Saquon Barkley or Justin Jefferson, it gives me pause. What are your thoughts on him today?
I know I saw that too, and I was like, man, this is kind of tough. But I played him pretty heavily just because of all the reasons you mentioned. You get the price savings from the top guys. He has workload safety. They've been using him a ton, especially in the second half of the year, where it's not even really a split backfield that much anymore. Catches passes, so he's safe in all game scripts, and just electric yards after contact, broken tackles. So I think I get it. I wouldn't let him be the guy that beats me today. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah, that's fair. I ended up eating a lot. It just gave me some pause when I saw it. It just like stuck out.
Totally, totally. Let's see here. Anything else in this game? We had a question in Discord from Chili Willie, longtime member. Jack, I'll let you answer this. Is a 4-3 stack too much in this game? And I guess the theory being that Buffalo blows them out, uh, and or it's lower scoring, or its scoring is concentrated. Same in the second game. Maybe you get 1 or 2 studs that pop off. Green Bay doesn't perform well, but is a huge stack in a high total game like this too much on a 3-game slate?
I mean, we should never say never, right? Yeah, I think if you built a lineup that had the characteristics you just mentioned, like defense running back heavy, maybe from the first 2 games, I would build it like that. I'm not saying it can't win, but I probably won't have any of those. But yeah, I mean, sure, it could. When we saw what was the one infamous one, the 6x2 or something, the Pittsburgh Cleveland
Yep.
one.
In the playoffs, 6x2 stack infamously won on DraftKings a few years ago. So if that can happen, these are better offensive teams. It can certainly happen here as well. You mentioned Eckler earlier. He came back last week after his injured reserve stint with that concussion and catches passes. Brian Robinson hasn't been much of a factor for most of the year, and Eckler's pretty cheap and not popular by any means. I think we got like 7% ownership on both sites. So Austin Eckler, a guy that you're mixing into and you're at least somewhat excited about.
Yeah, and I'm curious for you, like if I was gonna pick like a trash player, quote unquote, for a small field, like it just looks like a great one, especially on DraftKings.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Brian Robinson runs that many routes. I was just gonna look, but it, Tampa Bay's a pass funnel anyway. Robinson's not been efficient. It just seems like, and Eckler's been getting like half the snaps whenever he's been healthy. So I love that one.
I think so. I mean, I think it's a fantastic play. I agree so much. So yeah, let's go with Austin Eckler as one of the best low owned plays on the slate. All right, guys, it is 11:20. We'll be here for another 10 to 15, 20 minutes, depending on the number of questions that we get. Let's move on to the short slate strategy section for the show. The strategies to win 3-game slates are playing low-owned players, and they're a good amount today, so I don't think you have to restrict them. Much like we said yesterday, you don't really have to restrict your low-owned plays. Mega stacking, we've talked about a good amount here, and leaving salary. Jack, let's just hit on leaving salary really quickly. Again, 3 games, guys are appropriately priced, tons of studs. I don't think it's a slate where you, one, force
No.
salary, and two, I don't even think you even like try to do it.
No, and you know I am the biggest advocate of leaving salary. I built with 59.5 to 660
Okay.
today. That's how much I'm totally with you. There, you should not. I don't think you should leave salary today. There's just so many good players that it just seems very not optimal. And I mean, that's my opinion.
And just to be clear, that is for the 3-game slate. Obviously, that does not matter for showdown contests as much.
Yep.
Mega stacking we've talked about. Let's just sum it all up for people maybe who are just tuning in. For stacking, we're talking 3-4 guys from one game from one team, 1-2 maybe 3 guys from the other game. I think if you're overstacking, is the obvious answer Buffalo as a 9-point favorite, 10-point favorite, or is the obvious answer Tampa Bay, Washington? Either way, I think those are two like in the first tier. Those are the stacks that you should look to target first and foremost if you're hand building. I think our builder will give you a lot of those stacks as well. And then under that is nowhere nearly as popular Green Bay and Philly. But give me just like a quick synopsis of how you're approaching stacking and how viewers should approach stacking if they're hand building or putting rules into our builder.
Yeah, I think you hit it just like with the there's so many good low owned plays today that, you know, you don't necessarily have to use the structure to get unique today, right? Just by the virtue of playing these guys that are sub 20%. Like so I built with just like a min 3 max 4 with the quarterbacks. Just I would let it do a 4-man stack, but I wasn't trying to force it. So yeah, I think like that, and then 1 or 2 bringbacks, right? That's like a pretty standard. So you might even end up with like 3-by-1s, which is fine, I think, on this slate.
I think so too. I think so too. So I like that approach, and I think that's the best way, especially if you're using our builders, min 3, max 4, maybe max 5 on DraftKings. And again, it's only going to give it to you if it really looks good. Uh, did you force a Denver player in your Buffalo stacks, or would you allow like a 3-0, 4-0 Buffalo stack?
I did force it.
Okay.
That's a good question though. I mean, do you think you have to today?
I don't necessarily think so because it's 3 games, and again, because of the low owned plays, it's not like we have to force that construction. And with the split backfield, the lack of tight ends, like it's very possible that even if Sutton or Mims does something, that they're not necessarily optimal in a 3-gamer. So I don't think I would force a run back in the Buffalo stack.
All right, added my notes to go back and edit my lineups. I got 2 now from you guys on this show. It's good.
There you go.
I owe you something now too if I win with a 4-0 Buffalo.
Yeah, please do send the check in the mail. So, question from Samuel: 3-headed running back lineups, a nice hedge. Jack, I don't know if you have quick access to how your flex usage shook out. In small field, I still ended up with a bunch of 2 tight end lineups just because of what they allow you to do. Um, I think it'll probably. I don't know. To be fair, I don't know, but I don't think many people are playing 3 running back lineups with the pricing because Barkley, Jacobs, Irving are expensive. Cook's expensive as well. Brian Robinson's not too popular. Javante, McLaughlin, Eckler. So I don't think you'll see a lot of 3 running back lineups.
No, it's super tough. I mean, on FanDuel, like all the good guys are so 76, 78, 8, and 96. No,
Yep.
I'm with, yeah. I mean, so not it is an interesting way to get unique, sure. Not something you have to force, but yeah, I think you're right. Most people are probably not going to get there.
Okay, so we mentioned the low owned plays are so great for today. Let's run through position by position the low owned plays. Jack, we just pick out maybe our favorites of the group. So at quarterback, it's going to be Jaden Daniels and Josh Allen as popular. And then the other 4 are basically going to be unpopular and qualify as low owned. Jalen Hurts, Baker Mayfield, Bo Nix, Jordan Love. Do you have a favorite, or is it just like I like these guys as much? I don't think they should be low owned compared to the studs. Favorite low owned
Um,
quarterback?
I think for like I'm gonna say for 150 max, I like Love because it's just so cheap to play a three-man stack, and it's hard for me to pick like for a single lineup the optimal pass catchers. But if I just let it run through like several combos, it's just so cheap that you can get all these other studs in your lineup. So I mean that's probably not that's not because I'm a Packer fan, but I just think I like that one the most from a like little more competitive than Denver and just super cheap.
That's fair. I think for me, it's either Hurts or Mayfield. Hurts obviously just a massive upside with his rushing, and Mayfield, I'm kind of shocked that he's lower owned because of how good he's been in fantasy this year and a pretty good matchup with Washington here in a game that should be the highest total. So I'll say Mayfield for my pick. Um, Michael in the chat says, and we got a similar question about this yesterday for today's game. Denver's defense has been solid, high scoring, and they are cheap. Thoughts? I'll say this. I think it's pretty clear that we have a cheap popular defense that is a 10-point underdog, automatically that seems bad. And I think Jack, you pointed out yesterday that Denver's defense is kind of has this dichotomy where they've beaten up on bad teams and not necessarily performed great against elite offenses, right?
Yes, yeah, they've been just slaughtered by the elite teams. I mean, I think you could probably find 10 videos where we say like play defenses against Josh Allen, but like not if they're chalk and a 10-point underdog. I mean, that's yeah, I'm with you. I think you that's just not a good. It's yeah. Otherwise, the defenses seem pretty reasonable,
Yeah, I
but
mean, there's a chance they might be the most popular defense on the slate, which is bad and wrong.
and we saw it. Was that like 2 weeks ago or something? I think I told you like Cleveland or so, there's one of the underdog defenses that was like really cheap on
Yeah.
FanDuel, and they went like 40% small
Yes.
field, and they were terrible. They got like -3 points. I think it's against Cincinnati. Yeah, that was the game, and Cincinnati scored like 40 points on them or
Yes,
something.
yes, yes, yes. All right, so don't fall into that trap today, guys. All right, running backs. It's both Washington running backs are low owned. Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler. We've already mentioned our love for Eckler. We mentioned the Denver running backs. Jaleel McLaughlin's our favorite there. He's low owned as well, given his ascension into the lead role for the Broncos. And then we have all the secondary running backs. I'll just run through them really quickly. I don't think we're really playing these guys, but we have Javante, obviously, Rashad White. We have the Green Bay backups. I don't think they need to be played. The Buffalo backs like Ray Davis and Ty Johnson. Did you play Rashad White? That's the only guy I would consider playing of that group, Jack.
I didn't. I just jammed Eckler a lot
Okay.
because it seemed like the most obvious spot to me. But I mean, yeah, who knows what Denver's gonna do, right? You could get there for sure. Any thought of Rashad White like just I don't know, they get down or I guess it's I take like an Irving fumble or something, right, for him to really get. It's kind
Yeah.
of a tough one.
I mean, he's a trusted running back, so I mean, I could see it. He's like 1% projected ownership, so I think you might have to take a couple shots just in large
Yeah.
field. So I see that. All right, receivers, decent ones. We have for Buffalo, low owned. Amari Cooper, like 2% owned. Keon Coleman, depending on the site, 5 to 15% ownership. For Green Bay, it's everyone except Wicks. It's Jaden Reed and Romeo Dobbs. Dobbs specifically on DK will be low owned. Devonta Smith on FanDuel will be low owned. I think that's a price thing, I assume. And I'll refer.
Yep,
Yeah.
he's 7.4K. Yep, that's why. So you
So
can play all these Green Bay guys at like 5,500, so
mm,
they're not playing Devontae Smith at 74.
that makes sense. So he'll be low owned on FanDuel, and I think you have to like that upside at that price. Uh,
Yep.
Devon Vele and Marvin Mims are going to be low owned for Denver, despite Mims' explosion every single time that he's on the TV. And then Sterling Shepard, wide receiver 3 for Tampa Bay. So I think the first group, Coleman Cooper, the Green Bay guys, Devonta Smith on FanDuel, seem like really, really good low on plays.
Yeah, and as you know, we complained about it in the past. Marvin Mims being like 50% owned and smashing. Like he's low owned here, at least on FanDuel. So
I know.
take your shot on him like this time if he's gonna get those engineered touches. I mean, and then I think Cooper and Shepard should at least be out there a lot on the field. Whether or not they get a lot of looks is TBD. But 2% owned guys.
Can I tell you the stat that Marvin Mims has 55 fantasy points in the last 2 games?
Oh my God. Well, I'm gonna play him today at low ownership. He's gonna score 0. So
That is exactly how that works. That is exactly how that works. And that's at tight end. It's basically Ertz and Tucker Craft, and then we have Kincaid, Goddard on FanDuel, Otten on DraftKings. are going to be low owned. Again, this goes to show where pricing is different. Goddard will be popular on DraftKings. Otten will be popular on FanDuel. It's just a pricing thing. But again, with all these tight ends, none being super elite, I think you have to mix in all of them, and don't be afraid to pivot if you have a bunch of high owned guys at other positions. Don't be afraid to pivot with your tight end at low ownership, or like you said, Jack, just pair him with your quarterback.
Yeah. I think I just keep going back to pairing with quarterback when in doubt here, especially for like small field.
Totally agree. Totally agree. All right, guys, it's 11:30. We'll be here for a couple more minutes. Let's hit on some showdown notes. If you have a question to get answered, throw it in the chat. Our daily plug is up on the site. Our NFL manager, Chris, put that out late last night with his slate notes, his stacking ideas, his rankings, lineup construction tips for all the slates today. So go read that after you watch this video. Our model is up with our rankings and our projected ownership, and our builder has been up and running so you can build the lineups the same way we build lineups and all the rules that we use as well. All right, showdown. Quick notes, Jack. And again, Washington Tampa Bay has the highest prize pool, so that's probably the game people are most interested in. I'll just give you a couple notes just really quickly. In Denver and Buffalo, Allen is mega popular as the MVP and captain, as he should be. But I think the thing that stuck out to me the most was that the field is building relatively balanced despite the huge spread here, which is probably an angle we could take if there's not something that sticks out to you right away. You're like, oh, I could build Buffalo heavy as a 10-point favorite, and that seems like good leverage.
Yep, and we have our Onyx is like to be the most popular Denver guy on FanDuel, and yeah, if Buffalo does what the betting market expects and just blows them out of the water, there should be a decent chance that the quarterback is not optimal for the underdog. And again, I think maybe FanDuel is watching our videos. They actually priced the quarterbacks fairly today. Allen 17.5, Nix is 15K. So yeah, I think onslaughts make a lot of sense, and there's just a lot of these trash guys are pretty low owned on the showdown for FanDuel. So I think you could just play Josh Allen and do the 4-1s like you said. Play some under one or two low owned guys depending on your contest size.
I mean, so many good players to mix in, especially on FanDuel, right? You have, I mean, Marvin Mims is 11K. He won't be popular. No one's playing Amari Cooper. Who else?
Collins,
Yeah, Mac
Knox,
Hollins, Knox.
Devontae. Well, actually, Devontae is weirdly 20% owned on this because he's 7.5K.
Gotcha. But you could pivot right above him to Ray Davis, who could outscore
Yep.
him in a blowout. So
Steam, Velez. Oh, I mean, Keon Coleman's not even that owned.
it's a good showdown slate.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, Green Bay and Philly. Really quickly though, Matt in the chat says Matt, go back and watch the beginning of the show. He asked about Eckler. Yeah, we're big fans of Eckler today, so you're on the same page as us. So we like him a lot. Green Bay and Philly. See if I can pull it up here. There it is. Okay. This seems like a really tough showdown slate at first glance, just because we have all the studs. Any of them could go off between Barkley, Hurts, Jacobs, Brown, Jordan Love, Devontae Smith. Barkley and Hurts will be the most popular captains and MVPs, probably rightfully so. I think probably the worst ownership of all the showdown slates today, Jack, is Bo Melton, who is $1,200 on DraftKings and projects to be like 30% owned. I know he's going to get some snaps, but that's got to be bad.
Yeah, and having won a slate with him at like 1% ownership, you should probably not be jamming him if he's not that owned. Yeah, I think on FanDuel, I mean, the thing that sticks out to me, so like you said, I think it's a pretty gross one. Like this would probably be the third of the three games I would prioritize.
Sure.
But AJ Brown, Devontae Smith are both like 2 and 6% MVP. I mean, yes, we have Jalen Hurts, Barkley that are likely to be optimal, but that's a good leverage spot. And then I think the trash is probably pretty gross here too. I'm just looking real quick. Yeah, you have to play guys like Jahan Dotson. Yeah. So I think to summarize, first game, there's ways to eat Josh Allen and get different. Second game, pretty tough to eat the 30, at least on FanDuel, the chalky MVPs, and just a tough slate.
It is, and I think, and again, this is a great way to think about showdown. It's like, are there low owned plays to get different with popular captains? How the trash or low salary players look? And they don't look great on this slate. So I think my idea I really like and I've won quite a few, especially smaller GPPs in the recent couple of months, especially on DraftKings, is playing mid-range captains in games like this. And we already know Kraft and Goddard are going to be popular on the main slate, and they're in the 5K salary range here. Kraft 54, Goddard 58. I like just playing those guys at captain. It allows you to get a one extra stud, and you don't have to punt with a terrible player.
Yeah, yeah. So you don't see people build that much like that much and they usually go for like the stud captain and then like some horrible
Yes.
$200 player or something.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a great take.
or the absolute worst option is they captain the terrible player, and they play and even
Are
extra
you gonna
stud.
see Bo Melton captain in a high dollar microfield today? Do you think?
I would be shocked if there's not one player in the $700 or the $1,500 who does not captain Bo Melton.
Will you please, for my entertainment value, post that in that lineup in the Discord if
Absolutely
you
will.
see it?
I will. I will immediately delete
Uh,
it though if it somehow wins. So, uh, all right, guys. Final questions. Get them in. We're moving on to the final showdown slate. It is Washington and Tampa Bay. Let's see if I can pull it up. There it is. Okay. Jaden Daniels and Bucky Irving, unsurprisingly, will be the most popular captains and MVPs here. Then in the next tier will be Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans. Kind of similar to Bo Melton, Luke McCaffrey is the popular value here. And again, they haven't really trusted him on offense, and we expect him to be popular. I think there are definitely different ways to go about it. But Jack, any thoughts on this slate? It seems like a pretty good one just from the fact that the sheer number of guys we have to use.
yeah, I mean, you mentioned Baker Mayfield surprised at his low ownership on the three gamer. We project him at like 10% MVP on Showdown.
Hmm.
And so I mean that's a great place to start is just play him. And Evans is low. Sometimes I like doing this where like if you play a pass catcher or quarterback for like 150 lineups, just play both of them, right? You're betting on that guy succeeding, like you might as well look for some other outcomes. So I think that's probably where I would start. What are your thoughts on the trash or the low owned guys on this one? I'm just looking.
Let's see. So we have Rashad White. We have Sterling Shepard. We have running back three, Jeremy McNichols, who's gotten some work from time to time. De'Ami Brown's probably my favorite. He'll be a decently popular, but not like a 20 or 30% guy on both sites. Not nearly as much on FanDuel. But I think he's the wide receiver three today. And we know they like to use him, one, deep down the field, and two, sometimes in the red zone. So I think De'Ami Brown, I even played him a little bit on Classic, not to get too crazy. But De'Ami Brown is my favorite showdown punt play for this game.
Other thing that sticks out to me, the defenses are super low here. I mean, we have a quarterback making his first playoff start against a defense who's now very healthy, and they have some really good players. And then on the other side, Baker Mayfield puts up a lot of stats, but he also turns the ball over and takes sacks, and they throw a lot. So I think defenses is another interesting way to go
Ooh,
here.
that is a really good. That is a really good point. I'm looking at one thing here because we got Double J in the chat saying that Aldrich Estime for Denver is out. I'm just checking inactives right now myself. Let me see. If that's the case, yeah, Aldrich Estime is out. So probably leaves a little more snaps to McLaughlin and Javante Williams. You can bump them up a little bit in your rankings and make some slightly better plays because you don't have to worry about some other guy getting 5 or 10 snaps.
Yep, makes sense. Probably Javante. Well, so he said, is he owned on the DraftKings Showdown? I don't remember if you said
Javante,
he is. Or is he
uh,
priced fairly?
let's see. Let me pull it up here. Javante is. No, I think he's popular because he is. Hold on, if I can find it. Where are you, buddy?
He
Oh,
was he's like 7.5 on FanDuel. That's why he was
oh, I'm
popular.
completely on the wrong slate here. Let me find it. There it is. Okay, Javante is. No, he's 6,200. He's not really that popular on DraftKings.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, it's a tough price though.
Yeah. And just we mentioned Tampa Bay, and you just mentioned the defense. And Junior says with Tampa Bay getting these guys back, do you think that dampens Washington's outlook at all, or are we just interested in playing them in showdown, or do you think that hey, there's a chance that Washington could fail here because of that?
I mean, I think a three gamer again. We said we shouldn't try to predict outcomes, but you have low owned defenses on a three gamer. You generally should play them. Would be unless they're like a 15-point underdog. But
True.
even so this looks like a competitive game. Low owned defenses. Yeah, I mean you just throw them in. I think.
Shout out to Alex in the chat for becoming a channel member here on YouTube. We appreciate you. That gets you access to our Discord. Check the link in the description for details on how to access it. Email us if for some reason it doesn't work out because Discord, as we all know, sometimes does not work as intended. But as Double J says, Tyler Beatty is up, so he'll be the running back three. So I take back immediately. Denver still could rotate guys. So everything we said about them for the first 99% of the show just stayed the same with Jaleel and Javante Williams. So, okay, Jack, final thoughts before we get out of here.
Oh, just have fun with this one. I think we have. I guess we don't talk about this late swapping. I usually just only really look after the second game. Do you ever look after the first game, or is it just? I mean,
Only if like I have a really low owned guy that explodes in the first game. and then it's like, okay, I can make the rest of my lineup chalkier than I maybe initially intended. But again,
Yeah.
it's kind of what we talked about. I can't remember if it was last week or the week before, where it's like I also immediately look at ownership of the first game just to see how right we were and to see if we need to
Yeah.
adjust other guys later.
Yep. Yep. That's a good take. So yeah, remember, just check your lineups, slate swap. That's it. Have fun with this one. This is like this is a fun one to build lineups.
Absolutely. And we'll be around in Discord all day if you guys have late swap questions or other questions. Remember, the plugs up on the site, our rankings and our Occupy model, our projected ownership for every single slate today, and our lineup builder is up and running for every single slate today. OccupyFantasy.com is where you can get access to that. I know a lot of you just tune in for the free content. We appreciate that. That's why we do these videos. But if you want that extra edge and you want to get every tool you could possibly get to help win in your classic and showdown contest today, OccupyFantasy.com is where you can do that. So subscribe to the channel to get notified when we go live for next week's slates, as well as when I post tomorrow's showdown slate. It's free to do. Just click subscribe on this video. Helps us out, helps you out as well. Thumbs up. And any questions, get us in Discord. So for Jack, I'm Brian. Thanks for listening and good luck and enjoy a wild card Sunday.